Greetings, NFL fans. Today is Tuesday, December 23rd. You only have one more day of shopping until Christmas. We expect fine, and many gifts. Here on the Shutdown Corner Podcast, I am Kevin Kaduk, here with Frank Schwab and Jay Busbee, three married gentlemen, three kings, what have you. I'm fired up for the holidays. I'm fired up for Week 17. But today we are just going to do a year in the review, if that's okay with you guys.
It is. You know, as I pointed out on Twitter this morning, I think that the Browns have waited a little too long to start their Christmas shopping. They're down to picking through the Tyler Thigpens of the bargain bin there. So hopefully you guys didn't make the same mistake.
And I guess Rex Grossman was that Cabbage Patch Kid in 1983 that they couldn't get. They were too late. Rex Grossman had made plans. He's done.
Would you guys go to Cleveland for $53,000?
Hell yes.
Without a doubt. Go for $20. But hey, that's just.
All right, so I guess we should probably actually talk about Week 17 very quickly because there are things up for grabs, but it's not a complete free-for-all that we might have expected because the Bengals won last night, sewed up that playoff spot. The Steelers are in there, have also sewn up their playoff spot. So only one thing is up for grabs, and that's that last wild card. Chargers and Chiefs is going to play big into this. Frank, can you take us through this?
Yes, basically, Chargers win and they're in, but that's tough. They're not even favored at Kansas City. But Kansas City needs a ton of help even if they win. Kind of the Ravens are lurking because they're second in line. If the Chargers lose at Kansas City, the Ravens, who are playing maybe Mr. Tyler Thigpen at quarterback, they would jump into that spot with a win and a Chargers loss. The Texans are kind of lingering too. If the Chargers lose and the Ravens lose, the Texans are next in line. They play Jacksonville at home. You'd assume they win that. And Kansas City basically needs everybody in the NFL to lose, and they beat the Chargers. So they're on the outside. But, yeah, it'll be interesting. That Chargers-Chiefs game is kind of the key to it all. That's the Jenga block that's going to tumble everything down.
The Patriots have sealed the top seed with the Broncos loss last night. Broncos have clinched the bye or no?
No, they have not. The Bengals can still get it if they win at Pittsburgh and Denver loses at home to the Raiders. So, yeah, basically the Broncos have clinched it.
Still, what a come down for Denver. I mean, we don't have to spend a whole lot of time talking about last night's game, but that was not the Denver that we saw even just a few months ago.
No, it's a different team. It's just totally different. And I think I wrote it a couple weeks ago and got a lot of angry emails, but I think people finally that he was on primetime and they saw it are figuring out that Peyton Manning's not the same guy. He's just not. I mean, I'm sorry. I like Peyton Manning a lot. I've said very good things about him. It doesn't bring me any great joy to point out that he's not the same guy, but he looks like a 38-year-old quarterback who's had 4 neck surgeries at this point.
We'll talk more about that in the weeks leading up. If they have the bye, he'll have some time to rest, which will probably be a good thing, but I'm sure there'll be a lot of speculation.
Oh, yeah.
We'll get to that and probably fill a few podcasts with that later. Quickly, in the NFC, the big games are Packers versus Lions for the NFC North title. The Lions haven't won in Lambeau since the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were popular the first time around.
Were they popular this time around? I might have missed that.
1991, the last time they won there.
That's really crazy. That's still when the Packers were playing in County Stadium.
Yes.
Which is, although the last time they won was at Lambeau, but there were still games being played at County Stadium if you were a Packers fan. Then the other one, I think Jay Busbee is having the honor of going out to watch, is the big NFC South title matchup. Falcons
I would just like to point out that I
Panthers, 6 wins.
Yes, I picked the Atlanta Falcons as my playoff sleeper this year. I'm very, very proud of that, and I'm gonna wear that with pride. There was no record attached to that. Yeah, I'll be there. It actually is shaping up to be a halfway decent game, which is much better than the completely indecent game that it looked like a couple of weeks ago. But
it's not that decent of a game. No, don't give that too much credit.
I said halfway. I'm not even going full decent. But
right.
Yeah, this is a PG-13.
And the other game that's really meaningful is the Rams at Seahawks because, I mean, the Rams have beat the Seahawks once this year. It's not impossible, but if the Seahawks win, they're the number 1 seed, and we all know what that means. Every one of us knows what it means if the Seahawks get the number 1 seed.
What does it mean?
It basically means that I'm going to be covering the Seattle Seahawks in the Super Bowl again because trying to come up with different angles for Richard Sherman, Marshawn Lynch, and Pete Carroll.
I'm sure that Marshawn Lynch and Richard Sherman, they're going to be entertaining that Super Bowl week. Marshawn Lynch probably unintentionally so. Richard Sherman intentionally so.
Thank you for asking.
All right. Okay, let's move on to our awards for 2014. It's been a pretty fun year. We've been here every step of the way. Guys, I was really excited to share it with you. I hope you feel the same way.
Not really. Whatever.
Warm, fuzzy feeling in our hearts.
All right, so let's just I've got a bunch of categories here. Let's finish with our Team of the Year and our Man of the Year. Let's consider that like our big, director, Best Picture sort of thing. We'll keep those. Stick around for that. But let's start off with how they start off with Best Supporting Actor. It's like, let's get people into this so they don't get distracted by costumes and all that crap. Story of the Year, and I'm putting a note on here. We can't pick Ray Rice and Adrian Peterson because I think those were the biggest ones. We did our top 10 most trafficked post of Shutdown Corner, and Ray Rice, I think, was 2 of the top 3 most trafficked things. It was not only a football story, it was a great big national news story that really sparked a lot of debate about domestic violence, and then Adrian Peterson came along and brought child abuse into the whole thing and corporal punishment. It was crazy. I mean, there was a lot of things that you don't expect to talk about when you are a football writer. But we did. But anyhow, I think that would be easy to say that was a story of the year. So let's christen that the story of the year, and then all 3 of us come up with an alternate story of the year. Frank, what was the story of the year to you?
I hope this isn't too closely related, but I don't think it is. It's not just the outcry we had over Ray Rice and Adrian Peterson, but I think that Roger Goodell's just horrible plummet in his approval rating is the story of the year. And maybe the NFL's story of the year. The NFL's approval rating plummeting a little bit. I mean, for the first time, although, the television ratings didn't really reflect it, so maybe this is just idle chat or whatever. For the first time, I noticed people saying, I'm done with the NFL. I don't really enjoy this anymore. And a lot of that is Roger Goodell and him mishandling a lot of different things and coming off really, really poorly in the public. And I think we're beyond right now the media kind of writing love letters to Roger Goodell anymore and taking a closer look at him and saying, this guy really isn't a good commissioner, and he hasn't been a good commissioner. Look at what he's done. I wonder if that's the lingering effect 2 years from now of, people maybe figuring out, hey, I don't really like what's going on in the league. I'm going to find something else to do on Sundays. It didn't hurt him this year, but maybe that's the long-term effect.
See, now I'm going to butt in here because I think my story of the year is related to that. And NFL's popularity has never been higher, no matter what happened. You look at the ratings, and it really did not. Yeah, there was a lot of media bashing going on, a lot of tisk-tisking, a lot of saying, hey, Roger Goodell isn't this guy, but Roger Goodell's still in that spot. Yep. The NFL is still making money. The TV ratings have never been higher. So I would say, and not only that with Ray Rice and Adrian Peterson, but everything that we've seen this year in terms of concussions and CTE, there have been a lot of reasons that people could say, I don't want to watch anymore. And maybe some people have. I think people have. People have written that. I think someone actually just wrote an entire book about it, Steve Almond. But it's not the overwhelming majority. I know. I mean, maybe we're sitting here in 10 or 20 years and we don't have jobs because of that. But it's not happening right now. It's not happening next year. And I don't think it's happening in the next 5. So.
We've had this conversation before about what player could derail the league if this player was involved in something. We had basically the consensus number 1 fantasy pick player taken out of the league. Didn't miss a beat. The only thing that happened was that people had to go and find out, who Matt Asiata was, and that was that was pretty much it.
By the way, let me ask before we move on to Jay's, story of the year. Has there ever been a commissioner who's under as much heat as Roger Goodell? I know that Gary Bettman maybe, but that's not to this extent. I don't think. Maybe Bud Selig with the strike?
I think it's a different sort of criticism and heat. I mean, Bud Selig and Gary Bettman, I think, have, we're always behind the 8 ball, have always been behind the 8 ball. But they have made good moves and nothing like Roger Goodell. I don't think you take Bettman's blunders and Selig's, bumbling. I don't think it comes close to how Roger Goodell handled this Ray Rice case.
What's his approval rating? If we did like a President Obama type approval rating for Roger Goodell, what would it be? 10?
No,
15 maybe?
No, much higher than that.
Really?
I think that there is a huge silent majority that does not, that's just fine with Goodell dropping the hammer on these misbehaving players, and as long as the games are televised at 1 p.m. Eastern on Sunday, they're fine with him.
And all that matters is the approval rating of those 32 men who own NFL teams.
Indeed.
Exactly. You got 100% there.
Jay, your story of the year.
Yeah, I mean, we had two different NFLs this year, with the off the field and the on the field. For me, the biggest on the field story was the decline and fall of some real big quarterback names. We mentioned Peyton Manning, and I think that's going to be a big one going forward. You had Drew Brees, who I think is a very underreported story at the moment, looking completely ineffective. I think 2015 is going to be a challenge for him, but the two big ones, the big names, of course, were RG3 and Colin Kaepernick, completely exposed, completely lost. This was a time when we had gone from the year and the season of the quarterback to having some of the biggest names completely fall apart. I think that's going to be something that's going to have reverberations through 2015 and beyond.
All right. Let's move on. Let's just do funny story of the year. We just talked a little, some serious stuff. Your funny blog story of the year. Which one did you like writing up the most? Which one made you laugh? Was it a clip? Was it a video? Was it a quote? Frank, you're up first.
I went back and looked at a few, and the one that kind of struck me was all the Marshawn Lynch Super Bowl week stuff, because I remember being there. This was my first Super Bowl I've covered, and I went and there was nothing to write about. There was no hot point. This guy said that because Richard Sherman got the Super Bowl week, and people figured out that he's not really this crazed maniac. He's kind of a normal dude. It just says a lot of interesting things. So the Sherman thing died down, but then this whole story became Marshawn Lynch is not talking to the media, and he had the great "I'm all about that action, boss" quote. And I just remember, I think it was the Thursday in the Seahawks hotel, and Marshawn Lynch was at the small table with Michael Robinson, who was fullback then, and the media, I couldn't see Marshawn Lynch or Michael Robinson. It was 20 deep. All to hear a guy say nothing. And it was the most weirdest, strangest, and we're still talking about this issue. That was my funniest blog post I did of the year, just because it was so insane.
There's just so much to work with because there's so little to work with. Lynch just, he makes everybody, he's like a backboard. He just forces everybody into fits because they're trying to come up with a question to ask him while still trying to be remotely professional. It's funny to watch.
Oh, dude, it was crazy. And that was one of the weirdest, okay, I've finally covered a Super Bowl now that I've covered this craziness, yes.
Jay, what made you laugh?
Yeah, I went with the incident where the Redskins PR guy hauls Colt McCoy off the field and starts barking, no, at the ESPN reporter who's trying to get an interview. In itself, that wasn't a big deal. It was just kind of a moment where a guy was so completely stressed out that he lost control on the field. But it was sort of a summation of everything that has gone wrong with the Redskins this year over and over and over. They have one moment where Colt McCoy is playing very well, and the Redskins managed to step on that too and screw that up. So this is a team that's the franchise that's in disarray, and Tony Wiley exemplified that with the way that he acted on that night game.
What's funny is we did everybody should go and check out the most popular post for each of our blogs, and we did Shutdown Corner most popular. That was like the third most popular, most clicked story of the year. I was shocked. I couldn't believe it.
That's one of those things. I can usually tell what is going to do well and what is not going to do well. Sometimes it doesn't match up. I saw that. I said, man, this thing is clicking like crazy. Even though it happened late at night, the next morning, people just love interviews gone wrong.
Yes.
And what was crazy was that the Richard Sherman, Aaron Andrews thing wasn't higher. But I kind of attribute that to everyone was watching that game. There's 30 or 40 million people, so people weren't necessarily clicking to see Richard Sherman, Aaron Andrews because they'd just seen it. So it's kind of crazy. My funny blog story of the year is you have to go all the way back to January, and Jim Harbaugh, the pictures of him buying khakis at Walmart for $8. I just love that. I love it. That's and then it turned into a pretty funny commercial later in the year for Dockers, where his wife is talking about dad pants, and he's out there grilling in his $8 khakis. Jim Harbaugh he's just a funny guy. Just a fascinating guy.
He's a strange dude to be around.
I think when his biography gets written in 10 or 15 years, I think that's going to be a real fun one to read.
When I went out to do the training camp, I did all the the West Coast training camps in August, and I spent a couple days with the 49ers. And after one of Harbaugh's press conferences, one friend I know who covered the 49ers just looks at me and says, "I told you he's weird." And it was true. I was sitting there watching Harbaugh just like, this guy is strange. He's there's a voice in his head that's just
not. Shutdown Corner post or a Big League Stew post, but the post of him bringing his glove to the game.
Yes.
I love it. So.
And he inspires madness in everybody else. Today is apparently his birthday. Did you see what the University of Michigan did for his birthday on Twitter? They wrote a big happy birthday. They got a picture of him in his Michigan uniform, obviously luring him there.
Yeah, it's he's a funny, interesting guy, and he's going to be a huge, huge name in the upcoming weeks, even though the 49ers are nowhere near the playoffs. So, honorable mention, I want to get real quickly, J.J. Watt and the Zach Mettenberger selfie thing. Zach Mettenberger took those Tony Spicoli type selfies before his first start. J.J. Watt sacks him, gets up, takes the selfie in celebration. I love that one. So
it was pretty good.
All right, play of the year. Which one really kind of got you? Which one did you love?
It's got to be ODB, right? It's Odell Beckham or OBJ. Is that what we're calling? I don't even remember. But
yeah, I hate
it's Odell Beckham's catch, and if anybody has a play better than that, I'd be stunned.
Yeah, the Beckham play, I went with that as well. The reason why you can tell this is great is because I've told you all about my kids' flag football team. These little kids spent about half the damn practice, each of them trying to do the ODB play. They're like, ODB, and then we'll go and just lay out backwards. And, I mean, somebody's going to sustain a back injury pretty soon. But I would go with that as the number one, even though we got a little bit of recency bias. The Marshawn Lynch 79-yard run the other night, that was exceptional, just from not only from the sheer brutality and speed and power of it, but the way that he goes, dives backwards into the end zone, grab at his crotch. I mean, that was everything that beast mode is. It was perfect.
Yeah, I obviously that one is something that we're going to be talking about in 10 years. Everyone's going to always mention it. I went a little different. I went with a more impactful play, just in terms of the league, and I went with Peyton Manning's fumble on the first snap of the Super Bowl that was recovered by a safety for Seattle. Just because it set the tone for that game, it involved the biggest player. I don't know if it will really go down in history as a famous play because the Seattle's beating was so bad. But man, did it really set the tone that day and altered NFL history? Maybe
You could also say the same about Richard Sherman knocking it away from Crabtree. The Sherman Crabtree play in the NFC Championship game, the same way.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, if Crabtree comes down with that ball.
Yeah, totally.
We're not talking about Jim Harbaugh going to Michigan, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you think that play will be one of the defining ones, fairly or unfairly, of Peyton Manning in his career, though?
Probably. Yeah, I mean, when the story's written and they talk about his playoff failures, they're going to show Tracy Porter's pick six, and they're going to show him. It was a touchstone play of the Super Bowl, really, because it just summed everything up. It was Peyton Manning not ready for the snap, and it goes right by him. That summed up the whole day for them.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to disappointment of the year. I think you guys know who mine is, but I'm open to yours.
You know what? I didn't pick a team or a player. I picked all the primetime games and kind of the NFL in general. We don't like talking about it because we write about the NFL and we try to find the interesting things, but the NFL's been kind of boring this year game-wise. How many great classic games have we had? I mean, even like last week, Colts Cowboys is probably the game of the week, and it's 42-7. And all these
nothing before you could even get into it. Yeah,
the Thursday night schedule's been famously awful, and the Monday night schedule hasn't really produced a ton. A couple Sunday night games have been interesting, but it's just been like when I think about game of the year, usually I'm like, okay, this game, but wow, this game was great, and this game was great too. This year, I'm kind of like, what was the game of the year? I don't know. I mean, there was some good games. That's going to happen when you play 256 of them in a regular season. But, right? Especially the primetime game has been really, really disappointing this year. Just bad luck, obviously, but it's still a disappointment.
Let's hope the playoff games make up for it.
Right.
Damn right. Yeah, I would also picked. I didn't go with specific individuals. Well, I went with the entire NFC South, which is why the games suck so bad, because 1 in every 8 games was guaranteed to have one of these 4 crapball teams in it, and there was so little to redeem any of these. Maybe you had 1 or 2 good plays in each game, maybe not even that. But between all 4 of these teams, they're god awful. They don't deserve the playoff berth, as we've talked about, but they're going to get it anyway. So yeah, it'll take a while before that stink wipes off.
All right. My disappointment of the year, it goes without saying, is the Tennessee Titans. I picked them to win the AFC South. And
well, sure. We'll just skip the other one.
It's obviously my Chicago Bears. I picked them to win the Super Bowl.
Bad.
That is an egg on my face I will wear forever. I was actually just laughing with Mike Oz from Big League Stew at the beginning, or near the beginning of the season. He was scheduled to go to Las Vegas for his birthday, and I looked up the odds, and I think it was like Bears 15 or 20 to 1 to win the Super Bowl. And I said, "Hey man, put $100 on the Bears to win the Super Bowl. I've got a daughter being born. I want to start her college fund. This would be a nice little nest egg." And he said, "Sure, no problem." Well, he gets to the airport on Friday, and he's flying some off-brand carrier I've never heard of, blah, blah, blah. Long story short, he sits at the airport for like 10 or 12 hours. Flight gets canceled. His birthday trip gets canceled. I save $100. So that was the only good thing to come out of that Bears.
You were really worried that was not gonna that was gonna come back and bite you. I remember when that happened.
Yeah,
well, it didn't.
Well, I figured I felt like that would have like insured. Yeah, I thought it would have insured the Bears won the Super Bowl. It's like I could have won however much money. But Oz actually suggested that that delay opened up an alternate, darker timeline that led the Bears and his 49ers down this really bad path in 2014. So I'm going with that. Surprise of the year.
I there's a couple. There's not one big one for me. I think Jay's probably going to pick mine, so I'm going to go in a different direction. I'm going to go with the Arizona Cardinals just because I don't think if you would have told people that this injury is going to happen, that suspension is going to happen, this injury is going to happen, they're going to lose their quarterbacks, who would have picked them to win 11 games? I mean, and they probably would have won 13, 14 games had they stayed even reasonably healthy. It just says something about Bruce Arians. Who thought back in August that they would be the 11-win team and San Francisco would be the 7-8 team? I'll take Arizona because it's been quite a story out there, even though I kind of, I think everybody kind of understands how this one's going to end.
Yeah, I took Dallas. I think that's a team that stands as a surprise as well, mainly because they didn't revert to their expectation. We know the statistic. Since 1996, they have been a 500 team, literally won exactly the same number of games as they lost until this year. They finally got it together. Tony Romo not only played like the Tony Romo that he usually does, but he played it all the way through to December up to this point. They got a running game. They got a passing game. Everything fit together. And so we keep waiting for the Cowboys to have that cowboy moment. They didn't. They beat the Seahawks. They're coming into the playoffs on a roll. Now we might just be setting up for another one of those kinds of unfortunate Tony Romo incidents, but so far the Cowboys have really been one of the big surprises.
Two things on that. I actually considered the Detroit Lions for this pick because they have not had their Detroit Lions moment, but I thought, well, they've actually squeaked by in a couple of close games, so I don't think they're necessarily surprised, and I'm still waiting for them to have their Detroit Lions moment the first week of January. Second thing is I picked the Bears because part of my reasoning was they're going to have a great offense, and that defense can't possibly be any worse than it was last year. Well, it turns out that reasoning, the Dallas Cowboys actually proved it. They have great offense. I mean, Tony Romo, Des Bryant, DeMarco Murray. And that defense was not only not worse than last year, it's actually been pretty quite good, like just judged by objective standards. So it's kind of funny how that worked out. My surprise of the year is I'm going with the New England Patriots. It probably shouldn't be too surprising that Bill Belichick has done it again, but I saw a couple of you guys pick the Patriots for the Super Bowl, and I just thought, man, I just couldn't see how they were going to do that, how we're going to get past the Broncos. Thought Tom Brady might start showing some age, but after that Chiefs game, it's been all Patriots all the time in the NFL, and they've really proved a lot of people wrong. it's going to be interesting next year and the year before or the year after, whenever the Patriots do start to decline, if we're going to give them a couple more weeks than we did this year, because that Chiefs game happened, and I think we did an entire podcast on the death of the Patriots, and that was a mistake.
Well, you know what, though, and I've said this before, but just because they've played well since then doesn't retroactively make them a good team in September. They were a bad team in September. They were. That's fact. But all the credit in the world to Bill Belichick, who's totally turned that thing around, along with Gronkowski getting healthy and everything else that they've done.
Yeah, Frank, you and I both wrote those Death of the Patriots stories at one time or another. And I don't know about you, but my email inbox was full from Patriots fans saying, A, Tom Brady is going to make you suck it, and B, why don't you write any of these stories about Peyton Manning? We might have that opportunity if Peyton flames out of the playoffs early.
I think so.
Biggest story you're looking forward to in 2015?
You know, mine, I don't know that looking forward to it is the correct one, but it's something I'm really interested to watch, and that's Peyton Manning. It's, you know, it was like we talked about last Monday night against the Bengals. Everybody saw what kind of a lot of people who've watched a lot of Broncos games have seen. He's just not right. He's 38. What's next for Peyton Manning? And is he going to go into the playoffs and get hot? I mean, a couple weeks off with the bye. All of a sudden, his arms rejuvenate a little bit, and he wins a Super Bowl. That's on the table. It's totally possible. It's also totally possible that by this time next year, our story of the year is kind of the decline of Peyton Manning. And as a great, maybe arguably, I know a lot of people will disagree, but maybe arguably the greatest NFL player of all time. Is he done? I think it's a fascinating story. It's not one that I'm necessarily excited about because I want Peyton Manning to play forever and play at a great level forever, but the signs are there that 2015 is a big year for him.
I'm going the complete opposite end of the playing spectrum, and I'm saying Jameis Winston, NFL player. I cannot wait to see how this draft goes. I can't wait to see where. Oh yeah, UGG is a great expression, but you cannot deny everything that we had with Johnny Manziel. It's going to be magnified with Winston.
Yes,
Who's he going to go to? How's he going to fit in? What's he going to do? What's going to happen the first time he takes a snap? What's he going to get caught for off the field? It's all going to be just a lot of fun to watch.
I'm actually looking forward to that a lot because the NFL draft is in Chicago this year. I'll be out there, my first draft that I'm covering. I'm interested to see how it all works. They're having it at the Auditorium Theater, which is, it's not that big of a place. I really wonder how it's all going to go down. It seems to me like the NHL has, like, they do this at arenas. Like, I wonder why the NFL doesn't do it, but that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah, they could have set it up like a concert, right, at United Center.
Yeah, you didn't tell me 20,000 people would go
out, but people would have come.
Sure would have.
A little bit of fog lighting, that everybody. Oh my God, that's Jameis Winston's music. Perfect.
All right, the story I'm looking forward to the most is the Los Angeles and the NFL. It seems like we're getting a little closer to this being. No, you don't. I love the Oakland. I like the Ram. Like everyone in St. Louis, is like, yeah, you can have the Rams. It's not that big of a deal. Oakland is Oakland. They just said they're staying put in 2015
for another year.
I like it. You're probably right, but
my prediction is a team lands in London before Los Angeles.
Wow.
Well, then I guess I'm looking forward to that
because the NFL actually wants a team in London. They don't want a team in LA. I think they've proven that time and again.
Yeah. What's kind of interesting though is like there was the story earlier about the Rams and Raiders leaving Los Angeles. I think, what was it on the Sports Illustrated Peter King site? I'm totally blanking on it.
Monday Morning Quarterback.
And I was obviously cognizant. I was a teenager then, but I don't really remember it. I want it to happen because I want to cover it. I want to, kind of be apprised of all the machinations of it and all that. And NFL team, I don't really remember it. It could happen in baseball pretty soon with the Tampa Bay Rays and their stadium deal going down there. So I'm also kind of interested to see how that all pans out. So that's what I'm looking forward to in 2015. Even if it still turns out to be Roger Goodell's, ultimate, still be his trump card, whatever. So sorry, Frank, for disappointing you.
I know, yeah, I am.
All right,
big money.
The two big money things. Team of the year, Frank.
I how could you not go with the champs, right? But I'm going to go in a different way, although Seattle's
Yeah, I
probably
mean, it's hard. It's like the ESPYs. It's like,
Yeah.
why do you have sports awards when stuff is decided on the field? So,
I've never
yeah,
watched
Seattle
ESPYs,
Seahawks,
but
great,
hey,
blah, blah,
whatever.
blah. But let's hear you justify someone else.
I would take the Patriots because they've been the team we've talked about the most. Going back to last year, the playoffs, they were a really interesting team going in to play the Broncos on it. And then this year, there's just a transformation that we just talked about from where they were on September 29th when they got blown out by the Chiefs to them not losing. One loss since then, a 5-point loss at Green Bay, which is nothing to be ashamed about at all. And they're a fascinating team. They reinvented themselves on the fly. They're fantastic. They've been a great story. I think they will win the Super Bowl. Obviously, the answer is the Seahawks, but I'll go with the Patriots just because they've kept our interest. They've been really fascinating this year.
Well, I was going to go with the Seahawks, but now since you shamed me, I'm going with the American World Cup team.
The Seahawks, man.
I'm going with the American
No,
World
Seahawks
Cup
are
team.
probably
They
the
made us
answer.
believe. No, I'm taking the Seahawks, but
Yeah,
I would not have taken them if they hadn't had this late season run. I mean, they look like they were poised to be the typical champion that doesn't repeat, that has all kinds of troubles, but everything is starting to click for them. They're doing everything right. Whatever problems that they're having in the locker room, they're keeping contained better than any team is seemingly able to. They were dominant last year. They look like they're on an upward trajectory this year. I think we're in real good shape for the NFC Championship with the Packers and then the Super Bowl with the Patriots.
I'm going with the Dallas Cowboys. I think they've been pretty entertaining. I like Tony Romo. I love anything involving Jerry Jones and his soap opera, and he had a lot of fun stories, blog stories, the bus, and so forth for us this year. People ask me who I want to see in this year's Super Bowl, and I'm all about the page views, baby. Cowboys versus Patriots. Let's make it happen.
Yeah,
And you know what? I want Tony Romo. People like. It's really weird that people aren't talking about, hey, this could be Tony Romo's chance to cement his legacy. People have always talked about, like, that's what he's missing to be considered a great quarterback. And he's right here. He has a shot at it. You're going to have to go in and win at Seattle to do it, but they've already done that this year.
And they're going to have to win at Green Bay, too. I mean, unless something weird happens and the Cowboys almost can't get the 2 seed. It would take, like, ties and all that. So... Yeah, Tony Romo can go into Green Bay and then go into Seattle and make a Super Bowl.
If something weird happens, a.k.a. the Lions winning in Lambeau.
Yeah. Right.
Well,
even going into Detroit would be no joke, though.
He's coming in under the radar, which is probably the best thing for him. You've got you've got the Seattle, and then you've got Aaron Rodgers, who are looking like much more prominent teams coming out of the NFC. So maybe this is the best situation where he doesn't have the brightest spotlight on him.
You know what's interesting too is that they're going to play the Lions in the wild card round. I'm almost positive that because the Cardinals are probably going to be the 5 seed. It's likely going to be Lions or Packers at Cowboys week 1, and they could lose that game. And oh my goodness, I get ready for that backlash right now. If the Cowboys lose one and done, whew.
All right, let's move on to our Man of the Year. Who's getting that trophy? I don't. We should probably get like a trophy. Get one of.
Should get a trophy. We'll send one.
Get like a Frank Schwab bobblehead.
To me, it's been J.J. Watt, and I know I stub for him every week for the MVP, and that's part of the reason, maybe. But I don't know if I've seen a defensive player really kind of take the league by storm like he has. I mean, Reggie White was never this popular, and even though he's obviously a great player. Ray Lewis was in the news for the wrong reasons. LT the same kind of way. Maybe we're going. I mean, literally, might be like Refrigerator Perry in '85, but he obviously wasn't a player. J.J. Watt is. We've seen. If you've asked who has had the biggest impact on the season, who's been the biggest newsmaker this season to me on the field, it's been J.J. Watt. And off the field, he's done. We've written about him a billion times for just the things he does. I mean, he's become a visible face in the NFL. He's kind of got this good guy thing going on, and I hope that continues, and I hope that nothing changes that. But to me, it's J.J. Watt. I think he's been incredible. I think he deserves MVP, as I've said a billion times, and he's the Man of the Year in the NFL for my money.
It's a shame you don't see more commercials with him in them. Just he's criminally underexposed.
I hear he really likes going to high school dances.
That's right. That's right. What's he doing? Have we ever investigated what he's doing there anyway? It seems like that'd be some sort of
he's telling what's
in
the
his
name about
uniform.
football in her phone?
school violation. Yeah. Anyway, I went off the field. Man of the Year, Roger Goodell. It's not necessarily an honor, but I don't think that you can look at the NFL this year and the way that it has changed in perception. Think about how it was even in the summertime. It's a now. It's a completely different organization. It's viewed completely differently in the ways that we've talked about. Goodell had that power, had that aura, had that Game of Thrones mysticism around him that he was the commissioner that had figured out how to keep all of these unruly athletes in check. That's completely gone now. You've got players openly mocking Goodell. It's not going to change, as we've already discussed this podcast, but I think that he was definitely the pivot point of the entire 2014 for the NFL.
He's basically like Richard Nixon in 1974 at this point, right? I mean, I wasn't around for that, but I think you can make that argument.
Embattled.
Who was your runner up for your man of the year? ISIS or what?
Yeah, exactly. They were doing well. My runner, I was actually thinking Tom Brady. That was my secondary choice, but I went with the bigger impact overall.
Yeah. I'm going with Richard Sherman, who in one interview went from a cornerback who NFL diehards loved and thought was a great NFL star to a household name and a face of the league. I like Richard Sherman because he proves a lot of stereotypes wrong. I think he makes us ask important questions about race and perception and athletes and money and all that good stuff. I really like the things that he writes on Monday Morning Quarterback, which the MMQB, which is what I spaced on before. I just think he's an interesting guy, and I think he's going to be an interesting guy in this league for long after he plays. Because I think once he's done, he's going to be sitting behind one of those desks. And I think he's just more than the typical bloviating athlete. Look at me. He's got, like I said, important things to say. And I think the NFL is better with him in it and in front of a microphone as well.
Any athlete that steps up and says what they think and backs it up without just the usual platitudes about giving 100% and we're just looking forward to San Francisco or whatever, I think that that's worthwhile. But, yeah, he took that extra step by bringing a little bit of attitude, a little bit of fire. People reacted to it. That's what you want to see.
Yeah. So there it is, our Shutdown Corner Podcast Awards for 2014
Very nice.
Yeah,
let us know your picks at Shutdown Corner Podcast. You can reach us on Twitter, all that good stuff. So if you have a pick, if you disagreed with your picks, we would love to hear it.
Yeah, we didn't have to use the music to play anybody off. That was a good day.
All right. So, one day till Christmas Eve, 2 days till Christmas. We won't be doing a podcast on Friday. I think we're going to probably try and get out and take advantage of some of those post-Christmas sales. But we will definitely be back the week after with a Week 17 recap and then playoff previews. We'll be here all of January, February, March, draft stuff, combine stuff. We appreciate all of your listenership this year. Recommend us to your friends. Give us a good review on podcasts. That's what we'd really like for Christmas. That's what we want to find under our tree. But like we said, we appreciate each and every one of you. Have a great holiday. This is Kevin Kaduk with Frank Schwab and Jay Busbee. We'll see you next time.